Genesis chapter 22, verse 2, our text and our reading. And he said, "Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of." Reading that one more time. And he said, "Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of." And we're going to parse it down even further, using the beginning portion of that verse. "Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering." And we need the Lord's help. That is evident. We're preaching on a message entitled Survival Instinct. Give up your Isaac. Survival instinct. Give up your Isaac. This was a man who God had promised many great, precious promises. He was a man who God has completely transformed his life. His name was Abram. He was an exalted father, a man who was a good man, a man who was favored by God even before he knew who God really was. He was a man who God was already working in his life before he knew who the Lord even really was. Yet God would tell him to leave the land where he was, go to a place where he would show him. It was a land where God did not even make it all plain and known to him, but he just simply said, "Abram, get up and go, and I'll let you know where you need to go." And he began to do that, and he had a great journey. He was a man who God had promised him that he would do many great things in his life. And as he began to progress in age, knowing that God was the God who would fulfill his promises, yet he did not see God's promise in his life coming to pass. For God had promised through his seed all the nations of the earth would be blessed. All the families of the earth would be blessed. Yet being in advancing years, he had not a son. He even approached the Lord one day and say, "God, what about this Eliezer of Damascus? Are you going to make him my heir? He's the steward of my house, yet not my very son." And God would say to him one day, and to Sarai, who would become Sarah, "Now I will return, and you will have a son." Abram would laugh inside, and Sarah would laugh. And I believe it was at that time that he would say, "Is there anything too hard for the Lord?" And as time now has progressed, God has begun to fulfill that promise which he has longed for all his life. God brought it to a point where, through very many various miracles, the promise has come in part to pass. God dealing with Abraham one day, and tells us in verse 1 that it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, "Abraham." And he said, "Behold, here I am." And when it says tempt here, it's speaking of how God was testing Abraham. God was putting Abraham to the test. And he said, "Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of." God was asking him to offer the thing that was most precious to him. The thing that was most precious to Abraham is that which God was asking him to give back to God. Abram had waited from about the time the promise was given until the time was brought forth, about at least 20 years. And now, after a period of just so many years, less than the time it was for him to actually wait for that promise to be fulfilled, now God is asking him, "Give this back to me." Survival instinct for Abraham could have kicked in. Survival instinct, which says, "No, let me preserve." We do not read between verses 2 and 3 of any conversation with Abraham asking God why, or how come, Lord, or why now, God. We don't even read that Abraham hesitated at all whatsoever. God has asked the unthinkable of Abraham to literally offer up his son to God. In verse 3, and Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place of which God had told him. We ask God to make us men of faith and women of faith. What will our response be when faith, true faith, is required? Where God demands the most precious thing of you, promising nothing in return for it. What will your response be? Abram's response, there was no hesitation whatsoever. On the 3rd day, Abram lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. Abram said unto his young men, "Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and will come again to you." What Isaac are you holding back from God? What Isaac are you holding back from God? What's the most precious thing to you? Each of us must give great consideration. It may not be what we think it is. When God goes to probing the heart, you find out what it really is. When God asks the unthinkable of you, what is your response going to be? Will you have the faith to act upon that which God demands and requires, and to do so without hesitation? Will you try to reason it out or reason it away, or diminish the fact that it is God's voice? Will the survival instinct kick in, which says, no, I must hold this back. I must have reserve. Though Abraham did not understand why God was demanding this of him, he still remembered God's promise. When God goes to probing and asking and demanding more than that which you feel you can give to him, will you still remember God's promise? For Abraham, his true survival instinct was not to preserve, but to give away, to surrender to God everything. He knew that God was going to fulfill his promise to him no matter what. And therefore, he was willing to give up his Isaac. What is your Isaac today? Give it up to God. Give it up to him. This isn't an ask. This isn't a plea from God today. This is a demand. He's demanding that you give it up to him. Let's find a place to pray. He that will gain his life shall lose it. He that will lose his life shall gain it unto life eternal. After Abram had been put to the test, God made a way for him. If you'll give up your Isaac, God will provide that ram. But you have to be willing to give it. You'll never have the breakthrough you need, the result you desire, till you're willing to give the very best, most precious thing you have to God. Give it up. Give up your Isaac.
God spoke to Abraham and said, take your only son, offer him a sacrifice to your one Lamb. Lord, if there's not some other sacrifice that I might bring, if that's what you ask me, Lord, I'll give you everything. I will give you all. I will give you all. Because if you ask of me, I'm not whole. My sacrifice is left there, giving you my very best. Help me remember how you and be willing to accept. Sometimes I said that I would give to you my own. I withheld a secret heart, thought I know inside. You asked me to give everything I love the best. Help me with courage and the strength, make me willing to say yes. I will give you all, I will give you all. All is what you ask of me, I will not withhold. If my sacrifice is less than giving you my very best, help me remember how you and be willing to say. Said give to you my own. I withheld the secret heart, I thought I know it's all. If you ask of me to give everything I love the best, give me the courage and the strength, make me willing to say yes. I will give you all, I will give you all. All is what you ask of me, how can I withhold? If my sacrifice is less than giving you my very best, give me the courage and the strength, make me willing to say yes. I will give you all, I will give you all. If all is what you ask of me, I will not withhold. And if my sacrifice is less than giving you my very best, let me remember how you and be willing to say yes.
And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. We know the end result, that Abraham lifted up his eyes and he looked. Found a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. And he took the ram and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. When God demands anything from you, He's not demanding anything that He has not already given up Himself. For God, who is demanding of this man to give his son, is the same God that gave His very own Son upon a cross. Jesus became our ram in the thicket when we were the ones that should have been offered up instead. Survival instinct. Give it up. Don't hold it back from God. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. God will make a way. But you have to trust Him. We're going to go ahead and close in prayer. Offering baskets up front. Give on the way out. This coming Saturday is Ladies' Bible Study at 11 a.m. Ladies' Bible Study, 11 a.m. Sister Guest will be getting with you on the location. Men will be soul winning at 11 a.m. Then the next Saturday, we'll be having our breakfast at 9:30 a.m. I'll get the location. So 2 Saturdays from now, men's breakfast. This coming Saturday, Ladies' Bible Study. Men will be soul winning. And then the next week, when we have our men's breakfast, the ladies will be soul winning at 11 a.m. Okay? So that's going forward. We'll be getting with you on anything else in the days ahead. Let's go ahead and close in prayer. Sister Guest, can you close us in prayer? Amen. Amen. You're dismissed.